Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I'm here with Carri Hicks, who is the state senator for District 40 in the Oklahoma State Senate. How are you doing today?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. All right, enjoy the rest of the video.
I'm doing well. Gregory, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. Could you talk to me a little bit about what all happened in session?
Yeah, it's really hard to summarize, right? What did happen this session? Lots of There were lots of moving pieces this last legislative session. For me, professionally, this was definitely the best session I've had so far. I'm in the third year of my first term, and we were able to get 7 bills passed out of the Senate and 4 signed by the governor. So those were all, of course, perfect bills. No, I'm just kidding. but they were kind of encompassed, a variety of different topics, and definitely were some necessary changes and reforms. On e-bikes, on removing mental retardation all the way out of our state statutes. We didn't get as much movement on price reduction on insulin and transparency for the diabetes community, but we'll keep working on some of those issues.
All right. Next question I had here was, what bills did you propose and which ones did you get passed?
I kind of jumped ahead, huh? Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yeah, I proposed I think I filed, maybe 35 pieces of legislation, and they were on, an overarching kind of variety of topics. Most of the, substance that I file actually comes from, conversations with constituents or meetings with organizations that I represent in the district. And so a couple of the bills that we did get through were with a group called the Coalition of Oklahoma Breastfeeding Advocates. And so last year, we were able to pass protected pump breaks for state employees. However, teachers are employees of an independent school district, so it's kind of like classified as a political subsidiary, and they were excluded from those protected pump breaks. So this year we went back in and were able to expand that coverage to our school employees, which is a big win. The group is already put together basically a free training and implementation of best practices for all the school districts, and they'll be kind of making sure that as we transition, that everybody has good resources and information on why this is so important to support your employees this way. So that was a really, really big win. We repealed a preemption where class 3 e-bikes, which are your pedal assist, so you have to be engaged in pedaling for the motor to engage. But those are currently preempted from being utilized on trail systems in the state. So we just decided, that the municipalities should have jurisdiction or discretion over whether or not they want to authorize those on their trails. So this was just a pretty straightforward repealer, so that municipalities now have the choice or the option to be able to, allow those things to be utilized on their trail system. So kind of a big issue in pockets around the state. Definitely we live right next to Lake Hefner, so I'm sure that that'll be a conversation ongoing as to whether or not those bikes will be allowed on that trail system in particular.
All right. So tell me about the budget that got passed and what you think about it.
I think there were some good things that we accomplished in the budget proposal. The frustrating thing for me personally is just that, last year we asked agencies to make some pretty deep cuts. And so most of what we saw in this budget was a restoration of those cuts. So, I mean, it feels a little disingenuous to be patting ourselves on the back
Yeah.
that we, were able to give, all the agencies some additional funding, because it's really just a restoration of what we asked them to go without this last year. So, I mean, that was definitely, a positive. I think the thing that was the most frustrating for me personally was just that we're putting an additional $800 million into savings. I'm all about making sure that you are well suited to weather the storm. But this is, the governor and those in leadership are basically touting this as a win to have $1.3 billion in our savings right now. And it's not a home budget. This isn't our money. This is hardworking Oklahoma tax-paying members and constituents that have entrusted us to use that money to stimulate the economy. So if it's sitting in a savings account, it's not going to work for the people of the state of Oklahoma. And that to me is the biggest frustration when we know that we have so many unmet needs in our communities.
Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video.
Yeah. What about funding for higher education?
And we didn't see as big of an increase as we would have liked, or as I personally would have liked to have seen. We know that in order to be, competitive, the governor likes to say that we're open for business, but we also know that we fall well below the workforce that's needed in order to fill a particular, set of skills, and as far as our national rankings on even just diplomaed and degreed folks, it falls well below what we should be in order to be competitive. So I would have loved to have seen an additional, funding. There were many proposals out there that would have provided necessary relief for specific programs, like a teacher loan repayment program. And those didn't make it across the finish line. I wish they would have, because we know that school has become increasingly expensive, and it doesn't ensure that everyone has equitable access to be able to achieve their higher education degree. So that's definitely a conversation that's very much in progress as we look for ways to really remove some barriers and obstacles for people to be able to finish their degree if they so choose.
All right.
Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show were brought to you by Addie's Sugar Shack, located at 1228 North Interstate Drive in Norman, Oklahoma. Norman's new shaved ice concept. They feature 45 flavor options plus unique snacks. They love the vibe. It's worth the drive.
What are your thoughts on redistricting?
Redistricting was hard. I think it was kind of an emotional roller coaster, if I'm being completely transparent. There was, a groundswell of a group, that was really trying to push, an independent redistricting process, which, I definitely support. Unfortunately that didn't get the necessary support it needed in order to, become a reality, let's just say. And so therefore we had staff that was hired on both the Senate and the House who created their own maps. And so I would like to say, though, it was a fairly inclusive process, at least from what I've heard in the past with redistricting, that the minority party is usually left out of the conversation. And I will say, that we were included. We were able, to give some feedback and some input, which I was a little uncomfortable doing because, I just felt like it seems weird to make a request of who I'm representing. And so for me, I knew, unfortunately, that I was going to be receiving a much different district moving forward than what I currently represent, simply because Senate District 30 basically gives me a little hug right now and borders me on 3 sides. And so they were really concerned with the shape and just kind of the appearance of that district in particular. And we knew that both of us would kind of see a pretty dramatic shift in the populations of who we're currently representing. So I have about 50% new in my proposed map, which is, that's a lot of new folks to get to know for the next 2 years before we're on the ballot in 2022. So I do think that there was a lot of feedback that was solicited. There was a lot of input. I was frustrated that there weren't more accommodations made for, folks who couldn't attend in person because we were still battling a raging pandemic. I didn't really necessarily feel like the community was involved in those public meetings. I went to several online, and the turnouts were pretty low, pretty minimal. But I guess that's consistent with, we had low record voter turnout this last year, and it was still the lowest in the country. So, I would have loved to have seen more engagement, from the public to be able to kind of explain why certain communities need to remain intact.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or mention?
I think the elephant in the room is, managed care and Medicaid expansion, right?
Yeah.
And that's very much still an evolving conversation. I was very excited that the people in the state of Oklahoma voted to expand our Medicaid system, and I think it's long overdue. I mean, we've sent millions, hundreds of millions of our federal tax dollars to other states who had already expanded. So I think this is important for us to bring those federal tax dollars home to work for us. With the proposal from the governor on managed care and the RFP that the Healthcare Authority put out, and they contracted with 4 managed care organizations, or MCOs, ahead of a ruling from the Supreme Court that dropped, I guess it was last Tuesday. So we're just, very close to this decision in saying that it was not within the, jurisdiction of the governor to act unilaterally. Basically, in that way, you didn't have the power. You needed legislative approval. So there's currently a conversation that's ongoing about whether or not the Senate bill we passed, 131, which was intended to put guardrails, so to speak, or some parameters to safeguard the contracting process, whether or not that is now considered legislative approval, which it definitely was not intended to be. So some attorneys are arguing that is, it's now in statute, and so therefore we have to start over, but we can move forward with a managed care model. Others would argue that, that was never intended to be an approval. And so at this point, I think it's kind of a wait and see what the final decisions, boil down to. There are some pretty compelling reasons to look at the social determinants of health that the MCOs are talking about, but unfortunately, the overhead and the expense, it's another 10 to 15% additional overhead. That means that 10 to 15 cents on the dollar is not going to serve Oklahoma families I just have a lot of remaining questions, even after meeting with many of them. Some of them are in some pretty nasty national lawsuits from states who have said they've failed to execute on their contracts. So I think there's a lot of really compelling reasons to pause and make sure that what we're doing moving forward actually puts the best interest of Oklahoma families first.
Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Hicks, the number 4 OK on Twitter. It's also Hicks for OK on Instagram. And then I have Senator Carri Hicks on Facebook.
All right. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Gregory.